What we're going to do, we're going to have a quick look at the current landscape. That's just literally one slide. Some of you will have seen it before, but we're just going to touch on that. We're going to touch quickly on ways to work with AI because some people are still new, and I shouldn't say still, but are new to using AI, especially in change management. Have a quick chat around challenges and considerations around using AI, and then we're going to jump into AI and change management. And when Karen and I had a chat about it, we thought one of the best ways to work this through would be through the change management framework. So what we're going to do is walk through kind of the standard key phases of change management through their life cycle, and look at how you can use it in these different stages. Now, there's endless opportunities. We've only got an hour. Carol and I can talk like we've got a head underwater, as many of you know. So please feel free to jump in if you'd like to share something, but please also feel free to drop information into chat as well, as we go along around how you're using it, because there's endless opportunities. Now, Karen, what I might do is just quickly jump into this slide. This is a McKinsey slide. They put it out in 2024. I went to see if they've updated the research, and I found a 2025 paper they did, but basically they still pointed to this research. So I thought I'm just going to stay with this anyway, because really it paints the picture that I think we all know. So as change practitioners, what's really clear is at the same time we're looking at how we use change management in our practice, we're also working within organizations and industries that are bringing AI into the business as well. So you can see there on this slide, and as I say, 2024, but I don't think it's changed much. Massive investment from industry in relation to AI, and the technology is only enhancing, so we're just going to see more and more and more of it. So one aspect of it, of course, is how we bring it in a way that's appropriate, and how it changes the ways of working and everything else that it does. But the second is how we leverage that in practice, which is what we're going to talk about today. Caro, any comments from you?
Yeah, I was going to
And
say,
we'll
look,
move to the
the slide's 100% right in terms of still the investment. And I was just going to say too, there was a really interesting study that I read recently too that's got 78% of chief HR officers or chief people officers or GM P&C, whatever you want to call it, but effectively your head P&C person in organizations. So 78% of them talking about the need to really redesign work, redesign decision rights, and redesign governance in relation to AI. So AI is definitely top project for most people. But yeah, we've got this kind of, I mean, we're going to talk about it in relation to change management, but just at a macro level, we've got this real issue too that people are still sort of tinkering at the edges, right? So I think that same, oh no, it might have been a different study. It might have been one of them was a McKinsey study about the 78%. It might have been a Gartner study that basically said only about a third of organizations are past that initial, I'm just playing with it. So yeah, so we've still got a fair way to go in terms of actually using it more seriously in terms of, basically people actually managing robots as doing roles. But we are seeing some shifts. I was thinking, Seth, just some of the conversations that we've been having in the last couple of days. We've been out visiting clients face to face and stuff like that. We certainly know that there's some pretty big organizations, nameless, we won't say who, but pretty big organizations talking about, significantly reducing roles. Using these types of agentic AI. So there's a pretty big shift going on, Trace. But yeah, I think still we certainly find with the change practitioner community, people at really varied ends of it. So not too many people that haven't touched it now. So most people have actually touched it, but still a pretty decent spectrum in terms of how people are actually using it and how deeply they're using it to actually help them with their work.
yeah. Spot on. So please feel free, as I said, as we go through today's session, if you've got any comments, thoughts, anything that you're seeing out there, please feel free to drop it into the chat. Now, before we jump too quickly into the AI and change management, I thought it's worth just having a quick chat of some of the best ways to work with AI. And there's endless opportunities. These are just kind of a 5 points that I think many of us know, but some people are still relatively new to AI, and especially AI in change management. So, and I think that first one is a really good one. And this is something that I said to Carrie yesterday, I was just talking to her yesterday. I don't know it's hard to remember life before I was using. I like to use ChatGPT, but I'm literally on it all day. It does so much more work for me now, and I like to think I'm a lot more productive, and that's what we're going to look at today, through that change management. Treat AI as an assistant, not a replacement. Whoops, did that? I'm not sure if that echoed. Caro, thoughts from you? Oh, you're on mute, first time user.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's the computer's a bit slow. I don't know. The internet in the office is not super great today for all of us. Yeah, no, absolutely, Trace. And I think we'll get into it when we start talking about how people are using it. But um, we've learned a lot, I think, in the last year, Tracy, about how to use it really, really effectively. Because I think, there's a lot of concern, still a lot of concern right across the global market around decision making. And, you don't have to go far to find an article about where someone's tried to challenge the AI and realize that it's told you a whole lot of things that aren't correct. But certainly from a change management perspective, there's a really, really easy way to work with it. And we will talk you through that.
And
Shortly.
look, I think even today's point, that fourth point, learn from others and iterate and improve. Look, we use it. I use it every day in lots and lots of different ways. And I know many of looking across the screen today, many of the practitioners here will be using it heaps as well. So please, we learn from you just as much as we hope you learn from us as well. So oh, I can see a note there. It would be good to understand your perspective and differences between Copilot and ChatGPT.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay. Kara, do you want to go
I'm
first?
happy to start on that because we've kind of got a bit of a split team using Copilot and ChatGPT. I'm still a ChatGPT fan. I think they're still investing at this point in time really decent money into it. It really depends on how your organization's kind of got it configured, right? So a lot of organizations with the use of Copilot have got that lockdown to the information inside the organization. So it can be incredible for ability to find information and find access to the information that sits inside that organizational boundary. But obviously, the use of something like ChatGPT gives you the ability to actually scrape the information from everywhere around the world. You do have to be really careful, and I'm not sure if you've got it next on the slide. I think you're probably going to talk about security and all that sort of stuff, Trace. You know, tools like ChatGPT do have, when you have like business plans, so business plans with ChatGPT do have an ability for you not to basically say, I don't want you to take my information and effectively add it to your vast knowledge of information. So effectively turn off its ability to take your information and feed it into the broader ChatGPT. Even though that is the case, and even though we should trust that, and even though ChatGPT have make that really, really clear that they don't take your information, Trace and I will still tell you that we're incredibly careful with that. We wouldn't put client data in that. There's all sorts of things that we're still very, very, very careful about. I still believe, and I do it because I have a bit of fun sometimes with Gordon and our team, and we run the same queries across Copilot and ChatGPT. I still think ChatGPT is a bit better, but the reality is both those tools are incredible.
Yeah.
And look, I think the really big thing about it, and I do want to talk about it, and without getting to people into too much detail, because Trace is right, I will talk too much and we won't get through the data. That iterate and improve is really, really critical. And there's lots of, I'll throw some stuff into the chat instead of talking and talking and talking about it. But there's lots of different ways that we've gotten better with it, and it's got better. Really doing things like prompts like take your time and think step by step, give me a considered, not a rushed response. Like if you are patient and give your AI tool minutes to actually think about stuff instead of needing that instant, give me a response within 5 seconds, the quality of response goes up significantly. And I'll talk through some of those prompts as we go through the life cycle of change. But Trace, yeah, look, let's talk a little bit about the challenges and considerations. Maybe I'll just talk about a couple and you can go through the rest as well. That over reliance on AI, so human oversight critical for complex change decisions. I could not agree with that more. I mean, the reality is, and I say this, but I think and most of us here are seasoned change, project, HR practitioners. The reality is that we know our craft and we know our work, so we know if it's kind of just making stuff up or saying things that aren't really helpful. So there is this oversight that we have to have as humans in terms of not sort of overly relying on it. So I think it's an incredible tool. And I think I just already made that point about the privacy and confidentiality. So even when you've got full business plans. Maybe different if you've got a large organization that's effectively locked Copilot into that environment, or whatever tool they're using. But even if you're a small business and you're using the business plans, and you can absolutely turn the data off, so it's completely confidential and not going outside your organization. I don't know. Trace and I live in a paranoid world of, the phones are listening and the robots are listening and the computers are listening.
Never
So
stops.
we're always very, very careful with that.
About to.
Trace, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, look, just a couple, I can see some great stuff going on in the chat there, and thanks to Camille. Our organisation will start to use Claude more.
Yeah.
Used it for a few times, finding it better than ChatGPT.
Cool.
I think that's awesome. And to be honest, because I've been using ChatGPT for so long, I haven't even bothered in the end trying something else. I did try Grok actually. I had a bit of fun with Grok, which is another one. There's endless opportunities, but as Carrie quite rightly said, we use a paid version. I think it's, again, without taking us too much off on a tangent today, because we are looking at the use of AI in change management, really relates to kind of your organisation that you're in, what they're allowing, and how that fits together. So many of them have different facets. I've done a lot on AI and training. Again, I'll touch on that as we go through, if we have time, as we go through the change management cycle today. But what you can do, and literally give it 6 months on, it just keeps blowing my mind. The more that I play with it, the more that I find out, and the more opportunities. So even today's session, great having so many different practitioners on, because we'd love to hear from you, as I said, around how you're using it. But the main thing more than anything for me is I always make sure the settings are set for not training it, because I don't want it to take the information I'm putting in and training it. So I always watch that, and interestingly enough, every now and again it seems to reset itself. So I'm literally in there daily to make sure that that it isn't changing things on me. But in short, the other thing I wanted to touch on too was, I know someone said about checking the output. I couldn't agree more. It is fantastic to help the thinking. It is fantastic to bring forward ideas and all the rest of it. But I am regularly re-changing output that it's done, or challenging it on what it's come up with. So it is really important, when you do use it, that don't take necessarily the output that it gives you as, oh yeah, that's 100% correct. Always look for sources. Depending on what you're doing and how you're using it, you want to actually look for sources and really understand where that information came from. Does it intuitively feel right, etc., etc. Anyway, so let's jump into
And I think
it.
just
So
on that too, Trace, I was just going to say, even with the sources, so let's just say, I mean, different to, like, I'm going to use it to write some comms, and that's the basic stuff that people are doing. But like, if you are doing things where you need really considered ideas, or you're looking for that external perspective to give you ideas, ask for it when it gives you the output to give you the references, so that you can actually click on those links and go away and check it. You can actually ask it again, like I said, to go slow, take its time. You can ask it to go find academic research. So you can actually be very specific with it if you're doing stuff which is a little bit different to my day-to-day change stuff, but I'm doing stuff where I actually need some research or data or some thinking. You can be quite specific with it, so you can actually have a look at the output and really test and check the output. So it's just like, in those cases, Trace, it's like a brilliant search engine, right? Like, it's just a
look,
search engine on steroids, right?
I was reading a study the other day, and again, you have to be careful with these things, but it was literally, I can't remember how it was, but it was a kind of a bias towards, it likes to reinforce everything that you're doing all the time, which drives me nuts. Sometimes I like something that's going to argue with me. I can see Kate put a note in there, interested in the levels of AI capability. Just to give you a sense, Kate, as I said, I use ChatGPT, but I'm doing some academic research at the moment. So I do the bulk of it in what's called Instant. It's a paid version, but the Instant one, I actually think Instant's free. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Instant. But every now and again, I need to do deep research and look at the methodologies and the way I've cited different stuff, and without boring you with the details. So I switch to Pro. When I do that, what I do is an Instant tells me how to instruct Pro. And I probably would have put one or two sentences in. Instant literally gave me like a whole paragraph to say, this is what you want to ask Pro to do when you put it in the Pro version. and it literally spits me out like a 10 or 12-page report. Then I do some of the work in Pro, and some of the, even in Pro, to give you a sense, some of the stuff that has come back to me, because it's all relating to change and transformation, I go, actually, I don't agree with you in that. I think that's actually not quite correct. And it always comes back to me and says, oh, that's a really good point, Tracey. Actually, you could be right there. So this is where I'm saying I get a little bit annoyed when you use it a lot. Don't just take it as, yes, that's 100% correct. Really challenge it sometimes if it doesn't feel right. So it can do the heavy lifting, is what I would say. So I hope that was helpful, Kate. Anyway, let's jump into the change management, because what we're going to do is we're going to go through the phases of a standard kind of change management framework. Many of you will have seen this in different forms, but effectively, if we're doing any form of change, we're going through these phases often concurrently. So I said to Kara, let's talk through different things in different ways that you can look at using it as we go through the phases. So one of the things that I love about ChatGPT, and I'm not sure about the rest of you, but I really want to recognize this as change practitioners, and I use that broadly. Depending on your organization, we can sometimes be a so-called one-man band. I don't know if you're allowed to say that these days, but I just said it, so there we go. But, you're often doing things by yourself. And the thing that's been amazing for me around this is it's almost like I have an assistant. I get it to do the hard yards for me, even the thinking. So even when we're really starting a whole piece of change work, I literally like to throw in the context, the background, the organization. You don't have to name it. And say to it, how do you think I should approach this? And you can, the more prompts, the more information you give it, and the more depth you give it, the more detail it will come out for you. And what's great about that is, and I know many of you on this today's session have been in the space for a while, I have a pretty good idea where to start on these things, but I'm always fascinated to see what the AI will come out with. And it just helps broaden that thinking. Now, case for change, Caro, I know I'll give you a chance in a second, but of course, what we're looking for in this agreeing the case for change is we're really looking for that burning platform. So we're really, again, depending on your context, you might have a comms team, you may not have a comms team, you might be having to do that yourself. It's a real opportunity to take the business case or maybe take some comms that have been put together and really start to work with your AI around, is this really going to hit the mark for our employee base?
Mm.
And
And
this
I
is
think,
where it starts to get really smart around context and prompts and the information that you're putting in. Caro, sorry.
yeah, I was going to say, so typically at this phase of change, also if the project's long enough and requires it, you might be doing a change strategy trace. So you're actually doing like a really early impact assessment, really early stakeholder analysis, really high level kind of, let's call it change approach, even if it's not change strategy, change approach. The really big thing about it is the context, right? So it was funny because I was using it the other day and I was with one of my team members and he was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff you're writing into it before you get it to answer the question. We were just doing something live. We were trying to solve something. But that's something that I've really, really learned is like I learned from, from the first time I ever used it, which was just, oh, can you just give me this? Versus actually just really long, deep information that I ask it to do. And the other thing I ask it to do, Trace, is to really break it down. So people, let's just say we were doing a change in approach, and a change approach might include an initial high level impact assessment. I'm just making this up. Typically, that might be in it. Maybe initial stakeholder approach, maybe some initial change challenges and change risks that I think are going to happen. Things we need to be thinking about in terms of how we might manage the change. I could ask it to do all of that in one, or I could ask it to do it in sections. And doing it in sections is actually better, Trace. If I give it context and I say to it, I want you to think like a senior change practitioner. I want you to take your time. This is the context. This is the organization type. Like, so if I don't usually typically, even in a lockdown environment, I'm still very cautious with it. So let's just say this is a utilities company and this is what they're doing and this is the context. Go away and have a look at the context of what's going on in the utility sector and now come back to me and talk to me about the change challenges or the change risks. So doing everything quite segmented, I think really helps as well. And it's also things, and this is true for every part of the life cycle traces, like give me a first version, what's weak in your version. So you actually go back and say, well, what do you think's weak in it? Or I don't agree with these points. Why have you put them there? Or get rid of them and add these types of things. So it can be, and it can be the other way too. Like you might have done your initial thinking, Tracy, you might have done your initial case for change or initial change approach, and you actually might say, right, I'm going to give you some information on this. Could you pull this apart and tell me what you think is missing? So it's that interaction. So it's not this, I ask a prompt and it gives me an answer. It's in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out so that we get a product that's really good. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and thanks, Lani and Jennifer. Your points in there too. Definitely ask whatever AI
Yeah.
you're using how it can help you in different ways because the possibilities are endless. One of the things I would say here too, and please, I say this in context of depending on the organization you're in, how locked down your system is, and that type of thing. When I first started using AI to upload a document, it would only take like Word documents, but now they will take PDFs, which is great. So I'm not converting. So I often love to, if for example, I've got a business case or something like that, put that in as the context and then build from there. The other thing too, because I often work on a number of lots of different projects, I'll have different threads for the projects. And sometimes I can get to a point, so I'm going off on a tangent now, but watch out for this, where you've been working through a thread for so long that it really starts to slow down. So sometimes it's then like, how do I take that thread, that background knowledge, to start in a new thread to keep that flow going? So the more that you really work with this, the more you can do. You find out that you can do with it as well. And as I said, it is always improving. So, each week I go along and I find more things. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing what people are putting in as we go through today. Look, we are going through at pace today. I'm just conscious of that. An hour isn't a long time, but I thought let's jump through each of these phases and just talk generically around different ways you can use it in the different phases. Again, one of the things we probably should have said on the case for change too is it can write your comms for you, it can write the FAQs for you, you can get it to do all the FAQs, case for change, the comms planning, ask it to do all of that. If you've got a CEO, for example, let's say a CEO that is having to do a presentation around it or put out a speech or something like that, and you've got previous speeches from the CEO, you can drop that into the chat and then say to it, please write this like XYZ, our CEO. So it will follow that same kind of tone and things. It's amazing how it starts to get used to how you write. So, just the possibilities are endless. Okay, let's jump into building the change approach. Now, please, I've snipped this picture out of something else, but on the left-hand side there, what you can see is the change framework up the side. Across the bottom, it's talking to behavioural change and using tools and templates. Please don't look at the tools and templates and go, they're not in the right stages. Someone always challenges me on that. This is me being lazy and throwing different tools and templates in a slide. It's not supposed to represent where we use the tools and templates. But in short, building the change approach is looking at all the different tools and templates that we use as we go through the life cycle. So, Kara, I'm going to stop here for a second because I know you'll have a lot to say in this space, but there is endless ways we can get the AI to help us with a lot of these tools and templates. Do you want to pick two or three and talk to them?
Yeah,
And
sorry.
for
And I was
those
like
that are
totally
stuff in the
focused on
chat,
that's me throwing prompts in everywhere.
oh,
Just to kind
okay,
of give people some ideas
yes,
about it. And that's probably that's probably the biggest thing I want to say, Trace, is that yeah, look, I'm happy to talk through different tools and templates and how we might use it. But the most important thing that I really want for those of you that are new to it, and I can see all the people that are using it a lot agreeing, is it's the interaction on the prompt. So I could ask it to write me a comms plan, but that wouldn't be the smartest way to. So it'd do a basic comms plan, right? But the smartest way would be for me to give it a whole lot more context, for me to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the organization, maybe be able to feed it some information. So one of the things you can do with a lot of these products, in fact, all of them that I've ever played with, and I've played with Claude and I've played with Copilot, and obviously, yeah, I mean, Trace and I do have a bias towards ChatGPT, but that's just because we've gotten very good at using it. So the really good thing about all of those tools, but let me just talk about it in context to chat, is that you can effectively create projects, and creating projects. That's why having paid versions of it is really, really helpful, right? So you can create a project and basically feed it base documents. And so those base documents always sit there. So it knows that the context of any time you're interacting on this particular change project is about those base documents. So yeah, the interaction's the most important part, Trace, but it's gotten really clever. And what I would say too is it's gotten, like, for me, when I think about last time we ran the actual workshop, we do a half-day workshop. Trace and I have been very naughty and haven't scheduled one. I know there's a bunch of people waiting to do it, on AI and change. Even in the last 6 months, Trace, the products have got so much better. So feeding it, like feeding it survey data, or feeding it initial change impact data, and asking it to actually, and giving it 4 or 5 additional columns. Let's just say I've given it an Excel spreadsheet with some basic stuff in it, giving it 4 or 5 additional columns and saying, with the information that you have on the context of this project and my change approach and the stuff I've given you in my initial impact analysis, go and fill out these 4 or 5 columns, which might be different things I want to do from a change impact, from a change intervention perspective. It might be some risks that you see, some things and so I ask it, and I literally say, take your time, and I literally walk away, go do something else, and come back 4 or 5 minutes later, and it has done that work, deeply thought about it, and it has filled that into the Excel spreadsheet. Now it's doing that stuff 1,000 times better than it was 6 months ago. So there's no doubt the products are just getting better and better. So yeah, so the biggest thing we can say is, yeah, I could say, so that's how you do a change impact assessment. You could actually ask it to do an initial high level impact assessment for you. You can ask it to do an initial communications plan, but the most important thing is the stuff I'm feeding you in the chat, which is that it's actually all about the prompting, and it's all about the interaction on the prompting and not taking the first draft. Let's just say, Trace, I used it to actually write a comms, like you said, right? Write me a comms from the view of the CEO, and this is how he typically writes, or she typically writes, right? But the reality is, then you might say to it, okay, now I want you to be a person receiving the comms in the organization. What things do you think if you're really cynical? What things do you think if you're really positive? What questions might this comms prompt for you? So it's actually getting really good with your thinking about. So that's the change lens we provide, Trace, right? So when, like, comms is a really simple and easy, and drives us all mad. Change is just comms and training, but communication, like crafting a communication, is not just about whacking something out. It's about understanding the impact of when that goes out, what that's actually going to do, and that's the thinking that you do as a change practitioner. And so you can do that thinking with the AI. Sorry, Trace, I'll just
Yeah.
stop for a second. I feel like yeah.
And thank you, Lani, and others that are dropping stuff in the chat too. Some really good points going on there. Just to reinforce, I do, as Carrie said, and it's one of the things I love. I'm often running multiple projects at any point in time, so I have different threads where I can jump in and keep going on that thread. Just to give you an example again of improvements that have been made since when I first started, I can now put a PDF Gantt chart into chat, and it will read it. It scans it and comes back with views. Now, initially, it couldn't do that. It will. I had a table the other day, quite a detailed table that I wanted to use, and it said, if you give me a picture version, just basically snip it from your, desktop, drop that in, I'll create a table in the same format. Now, it couldn't do that in the past. It literally took a JPEG and reformatted a totally new table based on the format that I had done, with improvements around it. So what's really good too is, as a change practitioner, if you've had other projects where you've done certain tables of different things that you really like, you think, actually, this format's really good, you can actually work and teach it that this is how I like it done. And again, jumping around a little bit here, but if you think, let's just keep it simple. Let's say we had 3 projects going A, B, C. I would have 3 different threads for A, B, C. I have the files set up with a file name. So project A, project B, project C. Yesterday I had to jump into a design and construction project I'm helping with, and I dropped in the surveyor's information, the recent Gantt chart, and asked it its views on, where this is up to based on the recent file. And it came out with this massive report around the things that it thought was missing, which I agreed with. I have various stakeholders and it knows the different stakeholders. So I said, please write an email to XYZ stakeholder based on what I now need them to do based off this report. And it drafted a brilliant email. It wasn't really where I needed it. But again, this is where you use it as an assistant. Literally in 10 seconds, it had written an email. Probably would have taken me goodness knows how long. But all I then had to do was update it. So really, always test the assumptions, always test the output, put your lens across it and say, is this right? Because really you're the critical thinker in this, you're the strategist. You're really looking to use this AI as your assistant to really help you with the work that you just don't have time to do. And that's why I already had a view around the Gantt chart and I already had a view around the surveyor's report, but just dropping it in and getting it to give me its view. Off the back of that, I can get it to do a whole host of different things, which I did do, including emails. It gets to know your stakeholders, all of those different things. So I hope that makes sense for people. The possibilities are endless. I am going to keep going because I know we're only on the second phase. There's a lot of overlap here, but I do think let's just talk generically at some of these different phases as we go through. And if people have got questions, please do yell out as well. So preparing the people. Wow, this is a big topic. Caro, do you want to jump in on this one? Do you want me to keep going?
No, I'm happy to jump in, but I was just going to just say some of the stuff that I've thrown in. Apologies because I feel like I'm overwhelming people a little bit with some of the things I wanted to say, but
1 hour is never enough.
I know. It's also about asking for diagnosis, not deliverables as well. So I think again, it's really, really good at doing deliverables. So like in the preparing people phase, we've started to get into our training stuff, and let's talk about that for a second, Trace. But it's also about saying, and I put a prompt in there, like instead of saying create a change plan, it's saying things like, so based on this particular situation, maybe diagnose the type of change that might require it and what it means for my approach. So what you're doing is you're asking it to move away from just give me the answer and give me the activity to give me some insights first, and then you can work on the activity piece. But yeah, let's talk a little bit, Trace. I think at the training phase, so I think training, and we had a breakfast on this. Gosh, I can't remember when. I feel like it was early this year, a couple of months ago. We had a breakfast specifically on the AI and training piece. So preparing people phase is very, very much around that engagement piece, right? And part of that enablement engagement piece we're doing with people is we are doing training. There is radical stuff going on with AI and training. So yes, can you use Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot to draft up training packs, training materials, all that type of stuff, helping you with the training needs analysis, helping you even think through all sorts of different approaches. 100%, absolutely. I was doing something the other day where I had to start thinking about, so it was Microsoft 365 going into an organization that's really not used those types of tools before, and really using some stuff quite radically in a different way. They're really sort of basic where they are with those types of tools, and so the ability for it to do what I could have used to have done in a Google search, which was like, yeah, go Google search me and just show me a little bit more about how people are using this stuff to adopt a little bit more. I can do that inside the product, and it'll do the search all around the world, all sorts of information, and come back with what typically people are doing in terms of training products for that type of implementation. But there are some really, really good learning products on the market, Trace, that are just taking the development time from an instructional design to actually preparing a piece of learning content. Literally, in fact, you've started playing with some stuff, Trace, so maybe just it's worth you probably just jumping in here, because I know you've been playing with a couple of products in terms of creating online learning content, and it's literally gone from hours to minutes in terms of its ability to produce content.
Yeah, Kara's right. Endless opportunities in this space too. So just stepping back for a second, again, depending on context and stuff, for those of you that are still new to this space, depending on what stage you're at around the people side of things, you can get it to analyze data based on your needs analysis, training requirements. You can feed it information around key context aspects. For example, if say your change is tied to some specific strategy, values, whatever, give it that information, get it to come up with different planning around the different ways we can prepare people. And just remembering, which we all know, right, that learning needs are different. And the thing that's wonderful about the AI is it gives us an opportunity to draft a lot of information for training needs, for helping people, prepare people, FAQs, everything through the use of AI now. As one person often on a project trying to do it all, it was hard work, but with the use of AI, we can do that. Just in relation to the training side of things, Kara's quite right. I've actually started to play with using what do they call them? Avatars and training online. So I actually use chat to do a whole training course, just a segment of a training course, just to have a bit of a play with it, and then write the script. I was using two different softwares, and I don't want to take us too much of a tangent here, but the software that I was using around the training has avatars. So what I could do it in a number of different ways, but one of the ways that the training could be done is via a script and an avatar. So I basically took the script that was written by chat and I picked the avatar and I picked the voice and the language. And one of them was me, which was funny in itself. And I just literally dropped the script into the software. And the next minute, you had someone that looks like me now, talking just like I'm talking now, literally reading the script. So the way that you can use some of the software that's out there now, I was using a free version just to give you a sense. I can't for the life of me now think of the name of it, but it was a free version, and the avatars are quite mind blowing, really. And you could have them. So I could say I wanted American, Spanish. I did an avatar of myself, which you could do, and I wanted to see how it went, which was fascinating. And you can slow the speech. You can do it. Like honestly, the possibilities are endless. So this is where, as change practitioners, we've often had to work on our own. People just think, oh, well, can't you just manage the change, which, as we all know, is massive. So this is where we really, the more we can stay across these technologies and things that are coming out, and maybe we should do one on the training carry with the avatars and just show you what you can do on
Yeah.
that. It's fantastic. I literally got chat to write the script. And then I literally threw that script. I said I wanted as a script that can be read out. I literally threw that script into the avatar training software and picked an avatar, picked the background, picked what clothes I wanted it to wear. So I know that sounds a bit dodgy. It's not really, but it was more like I wanted it to look corporate as opposed to casual type thing. And dropped the script in. And the next minute I had this training video with this person that just spoke beautifully and, did it. So endless possibilities
It
in
might
that
have been
space, Karen.
was it Synthesia, Trace? Because that's one of the ones that.
I think I've been playing with a couple. One was Synthesia and one was
Yeah.
Thinkific or something
Yeah.
like that. So
Okay.
there's a few that I've been playing with as well.
Yeah. And Trace,
Mobilizing.
I was just going to say, I just dropped into the chat. I think some of you have seen it anyway, that some of the big guns as well. So Articulate 360, which is for any of the people that are deep in learning will know that. Some of the big guns have really come to the party with the AI side of things, because of course I think larger organizations tend to trust those larger sort of enterprise learning management organizations. So they have definitely come to the party quite a bit. I can see Karen nodding her head. So they've definitely come to the party in that space, but there are definitely some smaller players that are interrupting and able to do stuff. So if you're in a smaller organization that can't afford those big organizations or don't have the time, there are just some amazing. I think I even put one of the newer products on the market down there. oh, I've gone and forgotten its name because I was just talking about Decebo as well. Learning Studio AI, I think it is one of the newer products on the market. And again, just people are able to just throw stuff in and it creates quizzes, it creates SCORM content, it creates text to speech. So the ability to produce SCORM files, which is effectively a file format that's used for like enterprise learning management platforms, even in large organizations. Some of these smaller players are able to do amazing stuff really quickly as well. But yeah, maybe enough on that.
Yeah.
We
And
could.
thanks, Kate, that's mind blowing. So this is you know what it can do these days. That's why I think sessions like these are great because you know even the information I think we were talking about 6 months ago, Cara, has moved so far ahead. Like I said early on, I know because I couldn't do it previously. There was no way I could drop a Gantt chart into chat and have the whole thing analyzed or a JPEG um of a picture, you know, JPEG of something and say create a format like that. So it is massive. Just to let you know, I know some of you will have seen, I flicked through a couple of slides. It was mobilizing leaders and enabling the organization, but let's jump to readiness and implementation because in itself, this is a big phase and it does pick up the other aspects anyway. Just to build on this one, and I'll give Kara a chance to jump in a second too. Um, what I like to do with the AI, and some of you have heard me say this before, and again, I won't take us off on a tangent, but there's a lot of tricks to the trade. And when you've been doing this long enough, I like to set myself right up front around what I know is going to happen when we get to readiness and implementation. And for some of you, will be very familiar with this. People like to be hands off, arm's length to anything that could blow up when we're going to go readiness and implementation. So, right up front, all of my documentation talks to what's going to happen at readiness and implementation. All the work we do around impact analysis, target operating models, all of that work right up front in the strategy documents, the change plan, everything gets carried through to the readiness and implementation. And the other thing that I do, and I've been doing with AI, is it's learning the format. So because I've done this so many times over so many years, I know the format, I know the documents, I know the way I want it set up. So I'm literally teaching it how I want things to run. So the more we can teach the AI how we like things to be done, you just get faster and faster and faster at it. So I'll just pause there for a second because there's a lot in readiness and
Yeah,
implementation, but there's
Trace.
possibilities. Karen.
Yeah, maybe because I'm just looking at the time too. Maybe one of the ways. So I'm really big. I love change readiness data. I think it kind of is a bit of an art and science that sometimes gets a bit lost when we're trying to do things at speed. But really sort of understanding how people are finding the change at any phase and stage. And let's just say you're close to that implementation phase. So I think I said it before earlier about being able to dump screeds of data. So maybe screeds of feedback data, maybe screeds of outputs of workshops or conversations I've had around readiness. Maybe I've done surveys around readiness. So I'm really big on throwing all of that stuff in. Um, and getting it to effectively kind of think about it like what's going on, what risks do you see, it's just that ability. So let's just say I've done something right across an organization, so I've got data across all the different business units and maybe some of the sub business units under it, especially when I'm a big organization. Just that ability to go read all of this, take the time, read all this information and tell me where the pockets of issues are and what sort of risks you see and what sort of things you think we need to be thinking about from a change perspective. So it saves me a whole lot of time, Trace. It doesn't mean that I don't usually cast my eye over it myself as well, because maybe it's the trust factor. But I would say 99 times out of 100, it's picking up all of the areas that I need to be focusing on from a readiness perspective. So yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, really good from that.
Absolutely. So a couple of things I can see, Kate. Sorry, Cara. Cara put I add reviewer roles to my project so I can spin up any one of my stakeholders as a reviewer on the fly, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Again, just to reinforce, if you always conscious of data that we're putting in and who has access to it and making sure it's appropriate, obviously. But I like to use my AI to understand my different stakeholders and therefore the different ways I need to connect with them and give them information. So I think that's great, Cara. And Kate, I saw your note. Do you use any prompts to train the IA, such as commit this to memory? I actually have a thread. So again, think of your file management as one of the things I've started to do with my AI now. So from a file management perspective, I have a section that relates to different documents. So so there's different ways you can do it. And I'm sure there's endless possibilities. And Kate, one of the things I would say is ask your AI how best to do it. But it's used to, I just throw it in this specific document. Like I have one, I can't remember what it is, let's say change plan. And it's a whole thread just on change plans. So I'll give it the context, etc., and then I'll put it in that document and say create it. So there are endless different ways that you can teach it or work with it. But what I'm finding is much as anything now is my file management. I've got different threads that I like to use different ways as well. So yeah, lots and lots of possibilities. Kara, just conscious of the time, we might keep flicking through here because I knew this would happen. I can't say enough though as I flick through. The it's just growing endlessly, the software and things that are out there. And one of the things, as I said before, the stuff that I did around the training was mind-blowing for me, using these different avatars. It absolutely, on some level, the avatar looked like me. It totally sounded like me. And it was just a bit the speed of the speech. So I had to play with the speech and those kind of things. But when you start to look at the software that's out there now that can help us with the many different elements that we have to manage as change practitioners, there's endless opportunities. And if you're ever lost, one of the best things to do, is it's come up constantly through this thread, is ask it. So whatever AI you're working with, if you're not sure on what to do next or how to do it or the best way to do it, ask it. And keep asking it as you go through, because it's always improving. Like I said, again, without kind of laboring the point, I hadn't realized that it had upgraded to a point where I could drop PDFs in, where I could drop JPEGs in. So if I hadn't asked it at some point, I would have kept going on the basis that you couldn't do it. So just keep asking it, but challenge it as well. I just really want to make the point. You are the one that really knows your craft. It's learning certain things based on its source information, but it is not you. So never take it as 100% correct. Always use your common sense and challenge it. Caro.
Yeah, and look, there's a couple of things in the chat I wanted to just respond to, because there was some great, so much going on in the chat. It was hard to keep up, but it's funny. I think this is a really great comment. Desiree, I think you've said it. AI is amazing for working faster, but I've noticed it also makes me feel more pressure to get things done quickly. Is anyone else experiencing this? And I'm curious whether AI is starting to shift expectations around turnaround times, and if that's impacting how much thinking time we allow ourselves. I can see you got 3 thumbs up on that. So I would say at least 3 people on the call agree with you. Look, yeah, I do think so. I think even from and I can talk about this from a consulting perspective, there's definitely an expectation that things can be done faster and cheaper. So I think that's going to be a challenge for us going forward. And I think that's why, Trace and I are really trying to encourage you about this kind of taking time and slowing down the interaction with it and getting it to take time so you take time. But I think you're right. I think the next year or 2 is going to be really interesting to watch in terms of expectations. I think there'll be, I do think that if you're not using it quite comprehensively, you do really need to get onto using it quite comprehensively, because we will see, I think, even in the change space, that expectation that people will be organizations will be looking for ways for people to be more expedient in the work they're doing. So I think you need to kind of get really sort of integrated at using it really well. But I do think it's a really great point, right? Like I think somehow and it also is a danger trap, right? Because it's kind of like, I'm just going to whack some stuff in, I'm going to whack it out, and then I'm just going to send it off to the manager and I think I'm done. I think that's dangerous too. I think you really need to be stopping and, as I say, getting really good at that interaction, and then also really sitting back for a moment before you send off your work and actually saying, is this work good quality enough? Instead of just like going boom, 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 done, and you haven't actually kind of really critiqued it. So I think that's a really great point.
Just to acknowledge and thank everybody for the questions, the comments, and your inputs today. It's been some wonderful ones come through. I just saw Colleen's one there too. Further to your advice on ChatGPT and turning off the training bot. For me, it's I haven't found any downside to it, Colleen. I have got the paid version though, so I don't know if that makes a difference. But I've absolutely said it's not to do the training from it because I don't want for a whole host of different reasons. So I haven't found a downside to it. But again, it's one of those things. It's moving so fast all the time that literally a month on, something I couldn't do, 4 weeks ago, I can do now. So yeah, look, love to hear your thoughts and get your insights as well. And thanks to everybody. Lovely to see some wonderful familiar faces on today's call as always. Never enough time, Caro.
No, no, but lovely to see you all. Thanks so
Thanks
much for the
everybody.
interaction. We'll see you in a few weeks' time if you're joining us.